We are years into the video revolution, and you probably already have some on your website and your social platforms. There's one specific kind of video that you must have because it opens the door to prospects in a way no other video can. My special guest today will explain what this video is, exactly how to create one, and how to make sure it's something the hottest prospects are desperate to watch.
Hi, I'm Will Seabrook. I am the CEO and founder of Light Touch Media Group.
And thanks for joining us on the podcast, Will, because we are talking today about explainer videos. We've all seen explainer videos. They've been around for years and years and years, and maybe they've got a bit of a bad rep as well, and maybe we can change that in today's video or in today's podcast. I think explainer videos are great. Well, maybe I should be asking this for you as a question, but I think explainer videos are great for explaining something complicated that people are buying that they don't really understand, which is managed services. It's something complicated that people buy and they have to buy it and they want to buy it, and yet they don't understand it. So let's delve into explainer videos, how you would use them, how you keep them modern, what makes them right in, as we're sort of on the edge of 2026. Before we do all of that, let's learn a little bit about you. So what's your background, Will? How did you get into making videos in the first place? And how many videos do you reckon you've made in your career?
Sure. So about 17 years of work now. I've owned 2 agencies, north of 8,000 projects to date. So everything from mom and pop shops to the Fortune 50, household name companies. And I've been fortunate to make a lot of different kinds of videos for different audiences and use cases, everything from national TV commercials to trade show videos to online explainer videos. And so it helps you get very good at asking the right questions when you're dealing with so many different audiences and outcomes. We've gotten very good at just understanding the needs. A video is always just a means to an end, and that's very important to keep in mind. And so, a trade show video that's up playing in a booth in this crowded, loud space with 1 million people walking around and talking is very different than something you're watching on your phone. And a video that's on LinkedIn is very different than a video that's on Instagram, for instance. So really understanding the audience, the use case, where is it going to be seen, and then what is the outcome that you're trying to facilitate? Those are really the 3 key questions you have to ask.
Great. Those are great questions to get started with. And we should say, by the way, that in those 8,000 videos, I know you've done hundreds and hundreds for MSPs, which is obviously why you're on the show. Right. So when we talk about an explainer video, and is it, as I said just a couple of seconds ago, that it's some way of explaining something difficult to people who don't know how to buy that thing, or are there other purposes you would use an explainer video?
Yeah. So, if you look at the sort of course of video, the answer to your earlier question is I completely Forrest Gumped my way into video production back in the day, probably around 2009. I co-owned my first agency, and we were trying to find ways to explain things to people that didn't want to read a long white paper or technical brochure or whatever it might be. And believe it or not, online video was a new concept at that time. Seems hard to believe, hard to think back all those years. But we started making very simple, but very conversational, engaging videos. And the thing I think that we did really, really well is that from the day one, we made it all about the audience. So a lot of people sort of fall into the trap of trying to explain something in very technical terms. They think about it from their point of view as a professional. I've been doing this for 20 years and I know everything about it. And I'm going to hit you with a bunch of jargon and industry terms and technological mumbo jumbo for the audience because they don't understand what it is that you do typically, right? But if you reverse that and you sort of obsessively put yourself in the shoes of someone who needs your services, they just don't know it yet. Solve their problem, speak to their needs. So typically you start off by saying, are you in this professional role, your owner, operator, or the person in charge of technology, et cetera, and are you dealing with these challenges? And the person's immediately nodding their head and saying, yeah, I am. That is my problem. Great. So let me just explain just enough about what we do in very simple, basic terms for you to begin to think, okay, you got me. You hooked me. You've created an itch that I can't help but scratch, and I want more information. That is sort of the ideal explainer video. And it can be done now again An explainer concept on Instagram or TikTok is completely different than LinkedIn or in an email newsletter, things like that. There are sort of when in Rome ways of going about it in terms of the format and how long it takes, et cetera. But fundamentally, you have to speak to the needs of your ideal audience, and you just put yourself in their shoes, because people are self-interested in terms of self-preservation. We're all drinking from the same fire hose of information every minute of every day now. And so we have our guard up. And if something doesn't apply to us or isn't interesting to us, we just immediately tune it out, right? But if you immediately start with, hey, if you have this job and you're probably dealing with these challenges, listen up. Right. And you'll see that if you start scrolling through sites like Instagram, the advertising, we're all getting hit with this all the time. Right. So you see something that says, are you dealing with this issue? Well, this is for you. And you start paying attention. Oh, yes, I am. Oh, tell me about that. Right. So that's really the core fundamental that's so important, is just speak to the needs of your audience.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And actually, I can see that when you are selling to an audience that wants the thing you sell, which is better technology, managed services, but doesn't understand it, the person who educates them is most likely to have a sales conversation with them, because you become an authority in their heart, you in their head and in their heart, just by doing that. So how have you seen the explainer video change over the years? Because you mentioned Instagram and TikTok, and obviously we've got, YouTube. YouTube only came out in 2005, which as a 51-year-old, I find that very hard to deal with, because YouTube is where I spend most of my time watching videos these days. I watch more YouTube than I do Netflix, which is only really happened in the last few years. Yeah, you're the same. I think the vast majority of us are very similar. And that just kind of blows me away when you think how much video there is. And YouTube is the world's greatest place to find things that you're interested in, whatever those things are. Someone somewhere is producing that. But anyway, I digress. So as the landscape of video has changed, as consumption has gone up, there are more platforms, there are different ways of having it. Our kids, I've got a 15-year-old, video is everything. It's on all the time. I know she's awake when I can hear videos are playing. Right. So, and I'm sure if you've got kids, Will, it's exactly the same in your house. So, how has the explainer video changed? So you talked about the core fundamentals of what it's trying to do. Are the changes cosmetic, or have you seen quite a shift in what you need to do with an explainer video?
Yeah, I think the opportunities are more varied than they've ever been, but it's also more important to really understand who your ideal client is, where they're spending their time. And typically, I would imagine for most MSPs, based in our experience, typically you're not targeting somebody who's 23 years old, right? It tends to be guys and ladies our age, maybe a little bit younger, a little bit older. And so for us, all of this is sort of a second language that we're now pretty fluent in, but we remember the days when none of this was around and this wasn't happening. And I was here at the dawn of online video, right? And so there's even almost a nostalgia for some of that for some of us, right? And so, again, what sort of works for TikTok? I don't think most MSPs need to worry about TikTok very much, just sort of period, at a fundamental level. At the end of the day, they're probably dealing with people one-on-one. They're doing email newsletters. They're following up on sales meetings. So a great example is, like, if you're a provider and you have just a great meeting with somebody who's totally bought in and excited, and you're like, man, I can close this. I know I can make this happen. Almost inevitably, they're going to have other decision makers involved in the process who've never met you, don't even know your name, don't know your value, why you should be chosen out of 500 other providers, right, that are banging down their door. If you have a 60 or 90 second follow-up video where you can email that person like, hey, Joe, look, really enjoyed our conversation. I think we're both in alignment on these points. Here are the ways that we can help you in a way that nobody else can. I know you probably need to get internal buy-in on this. That's typically the way that it works. We've put together a 90-second video that really reinforces what makes us different than all the other guys banging down your door. I'm really excited about this potential partnership. I know we can do great work together. Here's that link. I'm going to just call you in a couple of days. Make sure you got it. Make sure it didn't go to spam. Hope you're having a great week. Looking forward to our next conversation, right? Just things like that you can communicate, rather than just sort of having that initial great conversation. And then the person goes on vacation or gets distracted or whatever. And it's sort of it cools off and you're back to zero, essentially, right? And you're back to competing with everybody else who's banging down the door. Anything like that can differentiate you is just really key. But knowing the needs of your audience is going to answer a lot of those questions. You don't need to be doing a TikTok dance to sell your service, right?
Well,
Just this audience.
not for 15 years, because of course the kids that are 15 today, in 15 years time, they're the decision makers.
Right.
But let's worry about that one, shall we, in 2040? Which,
well, and all the trends will be completely different at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because
they will.
Definitely, there's no question that things work in cycles, and the trends on one platform aren't the same as the other. So
correct. Yeah. And can you imagine what the kids that are going to be watching in 15 years time? I'm horrified just to think about it. I'm going to be that grumpy old man. I think
implants on your eyelids.
Yes.
God knows what, right?
Hologram, something. I don't know. It'd be awful. Let's wrap this up with just a practical look. So, if you're an MSP and you were going to let's say you owned an MSP, Will, and you were like, right, I'm a video guy, so I'm going to use video to communicate everything, and I've got this really complex service. Where would you start with that? Because I mean, you've given two or three really good examples. I love that follow-up video idea. And as we all know, video can be used so quickly and so easily. It can be done on your phone. You could use Vidyard. You can use Bonjoro. It doesn't, you don't need studios. Like you and I have got nice studios and setups. You don't need all of that. You can do it very simply and very quickly, certainly, to get started. But if you bought an MSP tomorrow, which wasn't doing any videos in its marketing, where would you get started in terms of, and I do mean primarily in terms of explaining what managed services is and how to pick an MSP?
There's a couple ways you can think about it. You can look at low-hanging fruit is the short answer. That can be your most lucrative and or profitable service. It can be your best entry-level service that gets you a foot in the door, that starts the relationship. Whatever makes sense for you as a way to begin the conversation and gives you an edge to get that foot in the door, that's where I would start. And differentiation is everything for MSPs, because on a surface level, it is complex. You're doing something that most of these business owners just don't want to look at. They just want it to work right. And the way to take advantage of that, in my experience, is really explain to them why you're the best partner. You have the magic wand, because that's what they really care about. They want someone who's not going to take advantage of them, who's going to shoot them straight, who's not going to recommend a bunch of things they don't need or things that are more expensive. That's really going to be a genuine strategic partner for them to just solve this problem right away and forever. And if you can really establish that level of trust and commitment, then they're not going to go make a change. And then you'll have that years-long customer relationship that everybody's looking for.
I love it. Will, just finally tell us a little bit more about the kinds of videos that you can make to help MSPs, and how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'd love to help. And in fact, I even have an online course. If you talk to me and you don't like my prices, I'll let you go. I show you how to do every single step of it yourself, which is actually really helpful for MSPs. But for people who like to work with us, there's literally not a type of video that we can't make. So like I said, I've done everything for every sort of outcome, every use case, et cetera. And I love to help people. And so for me, it's also low-hanging fruit, and I'll help you determine that. What is the thing that's going to be most helpful to you? We've got all different tiers and price points, things like that. So if you go to expertcreativehelp.com, that's our website. And we're easy to find and easy to talk to. And there's no obligation. Like I said, I love helping people. If I feel like I can't be super helpful to you, I'll let you know right away. But I'm always happy to give friendly advice as well.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.